Hello, everybody. Father Scott Vanderveer here with our first installment of this series on the book, Beautiful Hope, which is a compilation of essays from lots and lots of wonderfully creative and hope-filled thinkers. And we're looking at this first section on what's termed as wishful thinking. A lot of us probably have a hard time defining the difference between hope and wishing, but the two are different. While they may be related, hope is grounded. Hope is based in something very, very important. Hope is not just wishing. Hope is what one author has said, it's like an anchor that's dropped way in the future. And you and I are slowly being pulled toward it. It's a future-oriented trust that life is going to work out. One of the ways I like to think of hope is related to faith in this way. Faith is believing that the story of life has a plot, that it's not all senseless, that when we get to the end of our journey, we're going to see that it all coheres, it all somehow fits. Faith is believing that life has a plot, and hope is trusting that it's a good story, that it's not a tragedy, but a good story, a story that contains everything that we need to have a full life. One of the things that we know about life is that it's going to contain highs and lows. It's going to contain all sorts of emotions, ones that are easy to bear and ones that are terribly painful. But we know that if we want to have fullness, we have to be willing to experience life as a big picture, filled with the joys and sorrows of living. People who only experience the joys of living and not the sorrows are not living a full life. So, when we look at our life in that way, and we look at it through the lens of faith and hope, we realize that faith is knowing that there's a plot to this story, that it's not all wasted, that even if we don't know what's going to happen next, we can use what we've already been through to make more meaning in the next chapter. God doesn't control what happens to us. We don't believe that God is treating us like marionettes, like puppets that are just going through some kind of script. But God can bring meaning out of any situation. God can help us see how the pieces of life cohere. And then we can use our free will to make choices to apply that meaning to whatever we want in the future. I get to be a better priest because I know what heartbreak is, at least in some areas of my life. I've had my heart broken by circumstances, by world events, by relationships. I've had my heart broken. So instead of wasting that, I can use it in my interactions with people in the parish. So if faith is knowing that life has a plot, one that we won't fully understand until we get to the end of it, and hope means that we know that the story is a good one, it allows us to focus our attention on living the fullness of the moment that we're in, not trying to jump ahead to some ending, not trying to get through the hard things because they must be a mistake. Faith means that nothing has to be a mistake. Everything can belong. The thing that's interesting about hope is that hope doesn't necessarily mean that we just accept everything as it is. It sometimes means that we're willing to put action behind what we want. So an example of this is saying, I hope everything turns out okay in the world. I hope that no more people die in the wars that are being fought. I hope that it's a mild winter. All of those things are detached from the outcome. That's maybe what we mean by wishful thinking. But there's another way that hope gets used in our life. When we say things like, I hope to put an end to racism. And then we do things. We interrupt racism when it comes up in our workplace or when we see someone being mistreated. I hope to make my community a less racist place is actually a commitment to do things about it. To say, I hope my child will go to college someday. If we hold a baby in our arms or hold the hand of a toddler and we say, I hope this child goes to college one day, we're saying, I'm going to do things to arrange this. I'm going to hold this in my heart, and it's going to give me joy every time I put money aside and I call it a college fund. Every time I turn off what I'm doing or let go of what my priority was to help my child with their homework, I'm investing in that hope. It's different than saying, I hope everything works out. Hope that has our investment in it is a participation in life going in a positive direction. So there's a lot as we look at the first part of this book to consider, because wishful thinking is something that anybody can do and that is just as likely to leave us disappointed as it is to leave us happy. But the hope that comes from knowing there's an anchor that's been tossed ahead of us that we're slowly being pulled toward. The hope that comes from knowing I'm participating in something positive here. The hope that comes from knowing that the story that I'm a part of has a beautiful, beautiful tale to it. The hope that says, because Jesus has risen from the dead, we don't need to fear death any longer. Hope looked at from those angles is a lot more than wishing. I'm glad that we're on this journey together, and I hope that you'll continue with this and join us in next week's installment where we take a look at hope from yet another angle. May God bless you all.